Welcome everyone. My name is Andres Jaque. I'm the Dean of the Graduate School of Architecture, Planning and Preservation. I'm happy to be here with you and happy to be with those that are following us on streaming or in the future. But it's a great honor to not welcome, right? Like to introduce Professor Juan Herreros, who is, of course, a major person here, very much loved by his peers, by students, by graduates, by everyone, right? But I must say that also for me it's very exciting because the first time I came here I was invited to a review by Juan Herreros to one of his studios. So it's very exciting to keep having these conversations here at GSAPP.
My pleasure.
I want to say a few things about Juan, even though, of course, he's very well known by everyone and also for those probably that are coming here to the open house. But Juan Herreros is probably one of the architects that is defending the capacity of architecture to operate on behalf of societies, ecosystems, and that's something that he's been doing for many years and pioneered the vision of architecture as a discipline that was useful, I would say, to deal with social issues, with ecological issues, with issues that had to do with culture and with art, and issues that were growing in contemporary art. I'm very happy to see that in 1984 you opened your office with Iñaki Ábalos in Madrid, and that was the year that Almodóvar was launching his film, What Have I Done to Deserve This? And for those that are familiar with Almodóvar movies, that was a very important connection. Almodóvar was claiming that everything was happening in social housing on the periphery of Madrid, in the outskirts where the working class was coming from the countryside to support the industrialization of the city. That's where the action was happening. At that same year, Juan Herreros, together with his partner then, Iñaki Ábalos, were claiming that the city centers were already kind of too explored. Fancy houses was not actually the exciting subject of architecture, but that actually the periphery, social housing, ecology, industrialization, were the topics for architecture. And they were actually doing houses not far from the Barrio de la Concepción, where this Almodóvar movie. But that was something of a change of reference. Juan at that point was already collecting art, actually. For those that have been to his house, there's all these photographs around of people that were working at that time. And that was also something that was part of his practice and the conversations with Bleda and Rosa, with Antoni Muntadas, with many others that I don't want to forget that are somewhere here. Montserrat Soto, also. People that were actually started to think of the way class struggle was moving from the unions to also other discussions that had to do with the management of toxicity, with ecology, with housing, with things that were the terrain of architecture. That was also a little bit of a revolution in the School of Architecture, where Juan started to teach early at that point, where he was basically claiming that design should not necessarily looking at the preciousness of the joint of marble with, as everyone loved in Madrid, but actually looking at construction and labor and mechanical systems as the space for architecture. In 1996, he taught here, and with the Buell Center, he worked on tower and office from modernist theory to contemporary practice, a legendary book that he did together with Iñaki Ábalos alongside with him, and that was published by MIT in 2003 with the support of the Buell Center. And that was, again, a big event, I would say, in architecture. Actually, some for Winter would say that you and Iñaki were the most American pragmatic architects that happened to be non-American. And they were claiming this opportunity for pragmatism to be seen as a space for architecture to connect with politics. And I think that was also very exciting for me. I was at that time also in the School of Architecture as a student, and there was these very fresh people that were claiming that we should not go back to this way of doing architecture that depended on the quality of the materials, of the detail, but rather at what is of the impact that it would have in societies. And in 2006, you opened your office, Herreros Arquitectos, and in 2014, you actually renamed it Studio Herreros, and Jens Richter became your partner, right? But before that, in 2003, something very exciting happened. You did this memorable and legendary workshop in Mallorca, where you brought together Tomás Saraceno, that at that point was unknown, Hanso Obris, who else was there?
Florian Beigel, Stefano Boeri.
Stefano Boeri, and you basically claimed that energy was the topic of architecture, but energy in a very creative way. You were doing these balloons that didn't work right at that time, and ended up being the whole career of Tomás Saraceno, that at this time was not yet known for his Aeropolis. That was very exciting, and again, a way for architecture to be leading a discussion about the way ecology could operate, and that ended up being also the career of Tomás Saraceno. I want to also mention some of the buildings that you produced, both in association with Iñaki Ábalos, like the Gordillo House, but for me, very important, the Valdemín Gómez Waste Treatment Center, claiming that the waste treatment center was a space for social innovation, and that basically a city that could deal properly and transparently with its waste would be actually a better city, a more democratic city. Or the Environmental Education Center and offices in Tenerife, or the José Hierro Public Library, or the Bormann Tower in Las Palmas, all of these foundational buildings that were inaugurating the way Spain would be operating as a democratic country through its architectural buildings, or through its buildings and the way its buildings were constructed, their institutions, and why this focus on public buildings was so important for Ábalos Herreros at the time that renowned architects were trying just to do very beautiful and kind of expensive buildings. Trust, ecology, social housing, and energy were actually your topics. So, and Bled and Rosa, Montse Soto, Anthony Muntadas, Tomás Saraceno, your friends on these adventures. With Studio Herreros, I think it's important to mention also the major buildings that you work on and you finished. The communication hub in Gwangju in Korea in 2011, a major domestic space, a collective domestic space in a city that was so needed of public space. The coastal parks in Panama, again, a project that was basically using the infrastructures as a way for social bettering. The Agora in Bogota, a major building that was seeing its function to create a public, to contribute to the making of a public sphere in a city like Bogota that is also so divided. And the protection, the social houses in Central Hall in Llobregat, in association with the Studio Arquitectura Mima that won the FAD Award in 2020, the high-speed station, pedestrian walkway, and Clara Campo Amor Square, 2021, and of course the Munch Museum that actually I'm very proud to say that also was capitalizing many of the work that you did here at GSAPP for all these years, doing your amazing studios, correcting typologies, looking at typologies as the starting point and looking how they were failing, how they were challenged by social change, and how that could be fit back into the typology and the design. The museum, of course, was a major achievement that was celebrated internationally, but also there were other things. You've been working on books, Le Corbusier Skyscraper, Palaces for Fun, the exhibition you did on Cedric Price at the time that no one was talking about Cedric Price, and he was actually forgotten by many. That was an office that I also already mentioned. Houses and public space in the 21st century with Akhtar, dialogue architecture, critical practice, textos críticos, Lambda Films. So it's a major also contribution to theory from design as an architect. And I want to say that, of course, this has not been invisible for our field. Juan Herreros has the International Fellowship from RIBA, from the Royal Institute of British Architects. He has the Icon and the AD Architectural Award, the Medal of the Arts of the City in San Lorenzo when you were born, right? Yeah. You were raised, right? The A+ Career Award, the FAD Award in multiple occasions. So it's, of course, a huge honor that Juan is a crucial member of our gang, I want to say, at GSAPP, and that he is making contributions daily to what we are. I'm also very happy that Lola Benalon will be joining me in responding to Juan and moderating a debate, the Q&A after his lecture. Lola Benalon, of course, is professor at GSAPP and is the director of the Natural Material Lab and also the coordinator of the architecture tech sequence, and a major architect that is rethinking the materiality of architecture as a living component. Perfect to go on and to continue the discussion on ecology, trust, politics, and that Juan has been launching for many years now. So Juan, welcome here again, or re-welcome, or whatever. You take your space here.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you, Andres, for this introduction. I didn't remember I had done so many things, but it's good. It's good to know. Time goes fast. No, I have a title for this lecture: Designing Unexpected Opportunities. And this is a way of saying thank you. Also, no, thank you for being all of you here today. And thank you for inviting me to give the lecture of the open house day. It's for me important because I have been for, I don't know, 17 times in the open house day, having bad sandwiches, no? But today this is much better. Designing is the added value. So what we do here, and with I think architects all around the world that try to do something, consider that design is beyond solving problems. No, solving problems is okay; it's not that bad. But design is this added value that we can create unexpected opportunity or unexpected values, unexpected giving back something that nobody has asked you to do, but you, thanks to architecture, can provide. No, the questions around this statement is to ask ourselves honestly, what's the value of what we do? How social, how critical, how inventive, how engaged, how political is our practice? Really, when we not with banal statements of proclamations, just when we do a project, when we enter a competition, how we choose any opportunity, how we select what we do, how we focus, no, the interest of any of the cases we work with in order to get that added value. No? So the second question is, how can we contribute to the construction of a better world? And the third, and you have talked, Andres, about this, being useful for others. This is a service. We are architects, no? So not only others in terms of users or citizens, also others, colleagues, schools, students, young generations, what we do to lead or to help architecture to grow, no? That's my concern. I don't know if getting it, but it's in what I work, no? Every day. So how can we transform all these concerns into architecture is what I'll try to show you some samples. Perhaps you like them or not. No? But I'll do this around 3 topics. One is mitigation or reparation. The other is new domesticities. And the third will be typological inventions or typological corrections. And many of you know that I have been working in this along years in this school. No? Infrastructural mitigations, this is a problem that we deal with many times. No? And it's about things that happened. Nobody knows in which moment they started, but we receive them as very problematic. No? So you see this road, you see what is happening on the right, this is industrial estate, you see what's happening on the left, this marginalized neighborhood, no, flooded and full of water, and we automatically understand that there is a problem of marginalization, no? But also we discover one day that this neighborhood that is marginalized for ecological, social, and topographical reasons is going to be re-marginalized thanks to the progress, thanks to the highways, no? So the highways are going to go all around the neighborhood and don't leaving these people any capability of being connected in a natural way with the rest of the city, with the rest of the citizens, no? Or with the rest of the communities, no? So our response to this problem was thinking that all the land inside this circuit is private, asked the Ministry of Public Affairs of Panama to give us the leftovers of the highway, the spaces, the left spaces in between the nodes. And working with these patterns of the traditional indigenous textile works that perhaps you know, many people in this room for sure know the molas and how important they are in domesticity and in the dress of the celebrations of many different communities and very few countries in Latin America and Central America, to create a pattern or a collection of patterns for the floor, because this is not only about connecting, no? Connecting the people or doing bridges or whatever. No, I saw a couple of bridges anyway. But it's more about the constructing of an identity, the construction of a proudness of belonging to this community. So the plan was, give me these places without any value. Let me pave with these specific colors of this neighborhood that is something to identify this community. Let me put some basket fields, playgrounds, and places to escape from the compressed area where these people are living, and also why you don't organize a training of the unemployed people of this neighborhood to work in the construction and to learn something about construction that can help them to get a job. No? So this is how bad they did the first week. Look at this floor, it's really very, very bad done. No? But in 2 weeks, this was done like this. No? It's quite well. So the design is here giving dignity to the people. It's very simple, it's super cheap. No? Even has some complicated situations in contact, in friction with infrastructures. In some moments we would say it's a heavy situations, but the sidewalks and all these areas that are incredibly active, no, every day, no, of people, and not only children, also no, old men and women who come here to exercise that perhaps they had not done that before, no, and no, you see the bridge and these pavements and the different of levels to protect from the highway, from the noise, from the pollution, because actually it's not one of these super developed highways that you can find in the US. No, it's more innocent, everything. The way the people use the place, inventing how to come here, no, and use this simple, no, and having these new centers of gravity of the life. No, so we are saying the children living in the center, perhaps in much better houses, in much better conditions and ecological ecosystems, have to be taken by their parents 30 minutes away Saturdays mornings to go to a club, a private club, to do some sport. No? Here they only have to cross the pathway and land in these areas. No? We have done many of these projects. No? In this case, I want to show you an historical reparation, a reparation of more than 100 years. Let me see, where is here? Okay, this is Santiago de Compostela. It's a historical center, a medieval town, walled town, and for centuries. This is the train. So the train came to Santiago, arrived Santiago 130 years ago. But the track couldn't come up the level of the city because it was so high that the 2% that the train can come up was not enough. So at the end we have a embankment, artificial embankment here of 12 meters. That means that the city became segregated from this area. When you see this green, is the good side of the coin. No? This was preserved because it was inaccessible, so it was not developed for years, and today is declared ecological patrimony, especially this tiny river here that is a very rich ecosystem. No? But also many people installed it here because being inaccessible, the land was very cheap. So a community of low-income people landed here, mixed it with industry, as have a very bad relation with the center. These two red dots are like 1,400 meters far one to the other, are the only options of crossing the track of the train and entering the city. But you have to cross under the tracks, so they are tunnels. So they are not good to do that walking. Of course, it's not good for children. It's not good to come back late night to your home after a Friday night gathering with your friends. It's not good for wheelchairs. It's not good for trolleys with babies. So that means that the people here is totally condemned to live there, compressed and prisoners of the infrastructure. We knew this problem very well for other reasons. So the day that was launched the competition to design the high-speed train station of Santiago de Compostela, we said, okay, we want to go, and we want to cross the tracks with the station. So the station will be the solution to this problem. This problem was a problem for us. So nobody was complaining of this situation. It was totally accepted, no? And nobody thought that could be solved so fast and easy way. So here you see this is the station. This is the crossing connecting the center, historical center, and these developments on these settlements on the south. And of course, this bridge is connecting the bus station and the railway station and all these intermodal strategies. But basically, we were sure that this 3 stupid millions of euros were going to solve an incredible problem. No? The proposal was so successful, we won the competition of the station, but the local government asked please to buy the bridge. So they knew that the construction of the station was going to take 10 years, no? But the bridge could be built in 9 months. No? So the bridge is not a bridge, the bridge is like a building, the bridge is 12 meters wide, so it's not this weakness that all we feel if you have to cross a highway in a tiny and go up from the stairs and all these situations. It's like it's a place with light 24 hours, protecting from the rain, protecting from the wind. So the connection is more like a street. Actually, now it's being named with the name of Clara Campoamor as a new street of the city. No, so this is it. No, it's this long urban room where you can get a refugee of the bad climate conditions, and you can cross, of course, in the night, and you can resolve this 12 meters difference level, with this, the embankment here to get the entrance to the bus station, and of course the Clara Campoamor Square, with this gesture of opening the mouth, opening the door, calling the people to cross, come to the center. Also, the people from the center now can go to the green protected area with the bicycles, walking with the children. They don't have to take the car to go a green space that is 3 blocks away of your home. No, so that is the revolution. No, this is the piece of architecture that we presented to the municipality and to the regional government when they asked to build the bridge. And this is to talk about labor that you have also mentioned. A very fast, so only a few of the many beautiful images we have of these columns and these technologies. And this is also interesting when you have to do a construction like this 5 hours per night, from 11:30 till 5 in the morning. This is the only moment that there is no trains crossing, because it's impossible to cut a train. This is a sacred decision for a railway responsible. So we could do this incredibly advanced concrete pillars with low carbon footprint material, and do it during the night with these incredible cranes here. This crane that is traveling all around Europe and landing in a place. It takes 3 weeks to install the crane just to do this work. But what I really love is how at the end, with all these things, you need to have these men doing the last work, like helping the iron to get into the hole of the 45 tons piece. So this is also something related to the love making things. So to build this piece, this fragment, this is 40 meters long, piece by the tracks during days and days, just to have one magic night in which the crane is going to transport this to land on the top of the pillars. And I'm not a fascinated person by the heroism of architecture. I'm bringing this not to talk about this testosteronic energy. It's more about this love. No, this guy is like Mick Jagger. It's like Mick Jagger because he gets the place, walk around, study the situation, goes into the crane, and works for 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours just to get this. No? I think it's like Mick Jagger getting the stage. The guitars are there, perfectly prepared. He has not to test the sound, nothing. It's just start working. No? So, and after that, he goes to the hotel, and next day perhaps he's in Amberes or in Switzerland or whatever, doing the same operation. But at the end, he has to do this. No? And let me show you again. The concentration of this person. No? It's really amazing. And this is the labor. No? When we ask ourselves, and in this auditorium, no, for this last year, we have listened many times, who builds our buildings? No? This guy, for example. No? So at the end, the bridge was built. The pieces there, we have all these elevators and ramps and mechanical stairs that are helping the people to cross the beginning of this square that now is much more growth and big trees. And in the night, it's like offering this security of the artificial light and this transformation. No? During the day is more opaque piece there, no? But in the night it reveals a kind of transparency and a presence of a collective benefit. No? And the day it was open was magic because the people visiting the place was not like a tourist, no? So they were not walking, like not going anywhere. No, they were crossing the bridge. No, these guys perhaps were, by first time in their life, going to the ecological park to exercise, walking. No, and they were so happy. Or these children that were discovering that could go walking to the school in 4 minutes without, protected from the rain, without having their parents taken there by car, because the school and the health centers and all the public systems that in Spain are good enough, but they are in the other side of the track, no, the tracks, no. So if you have to go to the doctor, you need somebody taking you there, no. And all these wheelchairs, it was like a surprise how many people was celebrating that in so many years they could finally cross by themselves without help this bridge, no? And this platform, this observatory from where you can see the outskirts of Santiago, you can see that neighborhood that was marginalized for so long time, and you can also see the Ciudad de la City of Culture by Peter Eisenman that is actually abandoned and not in use because it's inaccessible by the same reason, no? And in every meeting, every visit to the construction with any economical problem, with any tiny thing, they say, okay, we can eliminate the platform, the Juan's platform, no? And so I had to fight to get this platform in the place, not useful for any other than for this, no? For have the people there looking at their city, understanding the history of the train, why the train came, what was the problem, what was the good and the bad side of the coin. And this woman, perhaps first time also looking her neighborhood with another feeling, no? Perhaps she hated the neighborhood for all her life, thinking that was marginalized from the center. And in this moment, I was saying, oh, it's beautiful. I like it, no? Here you see the City of Culture by Peter Eisenman, no? Okay. So this piece, small piece, has changed the center of gravity of the city. And this is the unpredicted benefit or the unpredicted opportunity, when we won that competition. And now we are working in the station in itself. It's much more bigger, expensive, and sophisticated building. But perhaps I'm not going to be more happy than the day of the opening of the bridge. Living together has been a slogan. Quite frequent in the last times, no? but we have worked very intensely in the significant of this expression, no, living together. No, perhaps the city is, I don't know if it's the only, but for sure is one of the utopic we have been able of building and keeping and making incredible agreements around this topic of living together. But we composed this drawings years ago, this collage, no, like what we would like to happen in our residential buildings, especially in the social housing, especially in a type of social building that we were very interested in, was the ones that mix market and social housing, no? And in this, we could say, okay, the people should meet in a situation like this because perhaps there are knowledges that can be shared by these different income groups or different specialized levels of specialization. Also can happen this. If we see this and we see this rooftop, we understand very fast what's happening here and what kind of integration and diversity and possibilities of discovering something in the others can happen, no? This is also about sharing, I hate the word amenities, I'm sorry. Because amenities, well, perhaps it's because in Spanish, amenidad is something like, it's a very weak time, very banal time, no? But amenities, no? But these shared programs where the people can enlarge the tiny size of their apartments and they can find a kind of luxury, because the luxury is totally different from one group to another, no? So what is this room for? What you want, I don't know. You can come to work, but you can do a small party. It's not a question of putting names to the program. It's more a question of finding the moments in which you really feel that your life is being better thanks to architecture, no? This is the building. This is Marseille. This is one of the two buildings I'm going to show. Sorry, it's in Marseille. And it's a result of a very complex regulations, these different levels. And I like those regulations that were designed by Yves Lyon in a very, I think, smart urban plan, you know, for this place. But we won this competition and we built the building with the argument of doing a public floor garden, community terraces for shared activities, and private galleries in each apartment. No? So our buildings are the two ones on the right. And this is the third element. You know? This was the first building, perhaps many of you know this regulation in France that you are obliged when you do more than 150 apartments in the building to provide a number of social housing. The question was solved historically doing a second door, a second stair, and a second social group, not mixing. No. So it was the first time that we convinced the committee to let us do the same lobby, the same shared terraces, and help perhaps the children that they don't know that much about social classes to meet and to exchange their experiences. So this is the public garden that is only closed in the nights and originally was going to be private. No, you see here this fence that is closed in the night. The green terraces as you go up, and that here was at the beginning of the growing, and you see these programs that are shared, but all the inhabitants. No? This is also about this quality, non taking care of the luxury joints. No, there is a moment in which we build too well. Sorry for saying this. We will too well till the end. No, there is a moment in which you can. We can keep this unfinished, and with this feeling that everything you need is already there. Perhaps the money can go to another place, and this idea that the time is not stopped. The evaluation of the building has not started because it's still under construction. No? And that's a spirit that I really like. Not this feeling that you are living in something that can be better, perhaps in the future. No? when some money comes or whatever. No? And these are the private terraces of the apartments, no, with these shutters that are controlling the wind, especially in Marseille. The Mistral is a very complicated wind because it's coming from the good view always, you know, from the seashore, and it's so many people prefer to live in the west and not have a good view, just to instead of negotiating the Mistral, no. But these galleries are now full of green, and the people are living with this phenomenological relation with the climate conditions, no. And this is the kitchen, and I want to conclude here the kitchen to start with this other kitchen, the other project. No? This kitchen is in Barcelona, is a project on Sant Boi, and it's also to demonstrate how domesticity is changing or can change thanks to very small movements, like put the kitchen in the living, not in the living, in the lobby of the apartments. No, so. This is an open kitchen. That's the door of the house. You are living like in a small village with this courtyard outside. The kitchen is not at the end of the corridor with a closed door. Behind the door there is a woman cooking. No, this is the center of conversations. This is now every member of the family can cook, and the kitchen is social, is a place for discussions. We could say this the substitute of the chimney, and is the substitute perhaps of the TV, no? Because it's an active place, you know. And this is the courtyard, no? Where this is the door of that apartment. So this courtyard belongs to this building. So you discover that you are not in the ground, you are like in the 4th or 5th floor. The building is quite repetitive, quite simple, only one constructing detail, only one shutter, only one window, no, 6 materials more or less, is the only way of building this affordable housing with some quality in terms of space and architecture, and at the same time with the price that we have. So this social housing is built, social and low income market housing together are built with a ridiculous amount of price per square meter, and it's the same price that cost all the social housing that you can see in the roads of Spain. But here, this effort of understanding that is precisely the construction and the materiality where the money is, and the repetition of the operations as many times as possible can really help the building to be better and cheaper. No? This is a drawing to express that we had no context in this case. Where I have been always defending that every place has a history and every place is a context, but in this case was very difficult because these were the social housing that we were fighting against. This is an industrial estate. Fortunately, there is a park here designed by Batlle Roig, good architects from Catalonia doing landscape architecture, and our building was here totally isolated, and that's why we decided to build this block, very dense and very simple and very clear with, I understand, very beautiful proportions, no? With these cuts sometimes to let, as you have seen, some apartments to come out or to create some diversity in the programs, but basically the life is around this courtyard with these corridors that allows you to get in your home. And the corridors are wide enough to have bicycles, plants, children playing, so you can go to your apartment and you can take care of the children, no? And that is really creating an incredible life. This is the periphery of Barcelona. It's a place with many immigrants. Many of them the children have been born already in Catalonia, and many gypsies. No, there's a famous gypsy communities in Catalonia living together, something that was apparently impossible only a few years ago. So these are the gestures that we are doing into this super pragmatic and rigid monolithical building that looks to be very serious and very boring, but it's not, because inside we have these galleries and we have these colors and with this gentle architecture that is receiving you with some gestures and some traditional ways of using certain materials that are automatically recognized by the people, no? So they have lived perhaps in their childhoods surrounded by this kind of colors and protections, no? Because, you know, and the this ceramic, the cheapest ceramic material as possible. This is Mariona Benedito. I introduced you to her, our partner in Catalonia for all the projects we do. And also this window, no, thinking that every place has a history. At the end, the history, like in Santiago, is because you can frame this landscape and be sure that we can do something to increase the quality. No, these windows are much bigger than usual in social housing, in not only in Spain, in many other places. No, and so it's very simple everything, but at the same time, it's very, I think, in light in terms of not being exigent, but intense in the possibilities of having an everyday life. No, like not non-segregated from the because the social reasons or whatever. No, so this was a Congress Center. Was in the competition. Was the competition for the International Congress Center of Bogota. And this chapter is the one devoted to typological corrections, no? Or typological inventions. No? We have done a few competitions where we started thinking, what can we say new about this problem? What can we say about Congress centers? No? At that moment, Spain was like many other countries in the world in the economical crisis after 2008, which was like 2011. The Congress centers were blocked because the congresses, as you know, are organized with the excedents of the companies. No, so if the companies were in this bad moment in terms of not having money to organize congresses, the buildings were closed. But they were closed not because there was no congresses. They were closed because in the typical congresses centers, the only thing you can do is congresses. So the auditorium of a congress is very unuseful for any other thing. This is a slightly sloped with a tiny, stupid stage, with no technology enough, with no back rooms, backstage. So only 4 or 5 people discussing about cardiology things can stay there. No, so our first decision was to do flat auditoriums for this place, for this center. The second was to stock them instead of having all horizontal. Stocking them, we could create this public square. That means this is a building. This is a 75,000 square meters, 70,000 square meters in Bogota. It's the biggest building in the city. Why we give this building only to dentists and travel agencies to do congresses? No, can be useful for many other things. It's out of the, it's in the periphery, has a 3,000 parking lot underneath. You can do the best electronic music raves in all Latin America. You can do parties, you can do film festivals, you can do competitions of judo, karate, ping pong. There are many things to do just in a room big enough and high enough. No? And also, if this is public, so this is not the typical lobby of the Congress Center, we have these other small lobbies from where have relation with the landscape and understand the history. Again, this is a personal obsession, sorry for that. Understand that the Herreros, for sure, someone from Bogota here, the Herreros, the Sabana, the new developments close to the airport, the historical center can be discovered from there. So the people visiting the city by the first time, they can use the building as a device to understand the city. But basically the intention is that the people from the city, the people from Bogota, have to go this place 3, 4, 5 times a year because there are things happening there that are not only for exclusive professional meetings. No? So this is the main square, and this project is basically about collaboration. No? And I want to talk basically only about that. No? How these discussions or these conversations and dialogues with all the experts are present in the construction and are present in the elimination of the topics of this kind of buildings, and at the same time the apparition of some other that for us are totally new and have been revolutionary in the success of the building. And this is always a consequence of a discussion between cooks, no? Around a table, Daniel Bermudez, the architect who was our partner in this project, started drawing this because we were pointing, we have to do really ambition, an ambition in terms of sustainability that is going beyond saving energy or whatever. No, we have to do something to show that not only the building, also the country, this was in a very crucial moment for the history of Colombia, was going to demonstrate, no, that the kind of updating of the building, and we decided to try to do cross natural ventilation for 75,000 square meters, where you can fit 8,000 people in a reggaeton concert, no? So the experts in climate, artificial climate, said, no, you are not going to be able of doing that. Even being Bogota the perfect climate for that, no, because it's around between 17 and 26 degrees, no, every day. You will need 2.5 meters vacuum slab of air moving so slowly, no. And the guy, the structural designer, the BOMA, Aguiló, said, if you give me 2.5 meters, I take out all the columns of the building. No. So this innocent drawing with 6 or 7 different hands became into this other beautiful technical drawing with these 4 enormous columns and these other tiny columns with a span of 32 meters between them. And the slabs became really big and deep, and we can see here, so the air comes in, goes through, goes into the atrium becomes the element of accumulation of the air before going up and being eliminated, exhausted in the roof. And it's working perfectly. We had here 2 parallel conversations, one of the locals and local engineers that were trusting absolutely in the possibility of doing it, and the others were a super engineer company like Arup that were all time thinking in the liability and not being so sure. But Arup helped us to do things like this. This is the interior of the slab. So if the slab is 2.5 meters, you need to draw what is happening inside the slab. No, so inside the slab you can put bathrooms, you can storage, you can put cars, you can put what you want. No, and that's why the building became a totally new organism. I had not dealt with a situation like this, and this is part of our obsession that even construction details have to show architecture. No, have to understand that there is a question of transitions, emotions of going under this not so high cut to get into this outside lobby, kind of lobby, like a atrium, and going into the building. No, this situation. But Arup helped us to do all the programs related to study the movement of the air and how, if you start with the building totally blocked and colded during the night, it's starting at 17 degrees, you can have all the thousands of people you want till 11 in the night, moment in which you have to open totally the building because the temperature is becoming 27 degrees. So you have to open to get the building cold during the night again. No? So these are animated diagrams. I'm sorry not having animated because they are like 1,000 gigas each of them. I can show in a presentation like this. You see there, this is ready for a banquet or concerts or whatever. But this is again the moment of this question of the quality and the question of what we show, what we hide, you know. So in moments that sorry. The moment that the body touches the building, touches the fences, touches the doors, the quality is gentle and humble, no? But in the moment you only touch the things with your eyes, you don't need that, no? So the building is again unfinished, and the building remains this expression of showing not necessarily how it works, but a certain compromise with a concept of beauty and a concept of quality. So thanks to that, in the Colombian context, where construction of public buildings has a very low budget, we can have good materials in other moments, no? Much better than usual, no? For example, in the glazing, no? The glazing is a beautiful story. One of the conclusions of these animations was that it was impossible to call the building between 11 in the night and 7 in the morning again, because the building in itself was like a grid, like a jail of heat, no? So it was not enough to open the building. So we had to reduce the quality of the glasses. There are many simple glasses not using the double glass with camera that's a signal of quality. So in this case, the quality came from this other family. Now, I'm going fast. I know the images are beautiful. This is one of those lobbies from where you understand the city, or these beautiful rooms. This is the big salon on the top that has no columns. This where 5,000 people can fit in an event, no? And we were saying in the presentation of the project, we were asked about if the rooms are flat, if there is no stages, if you have all these storage rooms in each floor from where you can move cars and tables and whatever, what can we, how can we explain the building? And we said this is a meeting, this is a building for meetings of 5 to 5,000 people, no? So, and that is fortunately what has happened. Many things are programmed in this place. Also was a wonderful campaign hospital during the pandemic. And at the end, Norberto Chavez, the conceptualist, Argentinian Catalan conceptualist, helped us to find this new name, Agora Bogotá, forgetting the idea of the conventions that is here in small, no, capital letters. There is no international anymore because it's international, no? So if you say something international, it's because it's not international, no? You never, no? You never say Catholic Church International, no? Coca-Cola International, no? So, and I want to go fast. This we had to invent how to draw, how to calibrate the number of glasses of glazing, the different qualities, how we were losing or earning in terms of energy when we changed them, how many millions we need and in which positions, and what would happen if we don't have money enough and we have to reduce. At the end, there was this compact system was totally built in Spain and coming by boat, and these are these ales, branchias, ales. I looked this word in the dictionary today. Gills, yes. So that are, no, as you see, slowly being opened to get the amount of fresh air that the building needs. So the building is alive. It's a kind of reactive object, a reactive dinosaur, no? And in the night, you discover this volume at the scale of the natural accidents of the city, the mountains, no? And we also studied the repercussion of this piece in the city in terms of wind and heat. And at the end, it's there, and it's not a congress center. It's more like a place where go for wonderful things, for wonderful plans. And the citizens of Bogotá are using it as much as the visitors, no? The second and the last project I want to show you, I don't know how much time. Good. Is the Munch Museum. This guy is really happy. But this image is not that happy because this image was during the pandemic. So the building had been completed in November 2019. So the responsibles of the building were thinking on opening immediately, but the winter was coming or was already there, so they decided to postpone to spring just to have a very glorious and gorgeous opening of the building. And the pandemic came, and the building was closed till October 2021, 21st. No? And so this image is taken by Ivan Van in some trips he did to the city. You hear the monk still sleeping, perfectly completed but not open. And this I love these images, because you see something like this social distance of these guys. This is something that we learned in those days. But the building is there resisting. This is exactly the moment in which the pandemic started to disappear slowly, so it was possible to gather in the street, but the building was not still open. And this is coming from this. This is for me super important. This is the collective dream of getting the water, of as you know, the industrial port with all the containers in the center of Oslo was removed to go out of the fjord, and the city had the possibility of growing till the water after eliminating highways and building tunnels, and they're doing a quite ambitious project. But the result of this ambitious project is this, is more like a naturalness of getting the water walking, or walk along the coast, or bicycle or whatever. So this is the building already built, but is here this image to take you that the next week after, and Gary knows very well about this. After winning the competition, we received a lot of complaints about the height. At that moment was only the height of the building, because apparently Oslo was not a city of high-rise buildings, high-rise of 55 square meters. So we had to answer architects. We know to do very few things. One is talk. The other is drawing. So we did many drawings showing that the building is not so high, and was not going to be so high because the neighborhood that didn't exist at that time was going to be built, but the barcode was already under construction and was like that. And the other drawing we produced, very important in this conversation, was this one. So we never said no, the building is not that high. We say, okay, let us see how high the building is. But this was more important. This is the town hall of Oslo. This building is perhaps the most important building, is the cover in all the architectural guides of the city all around the world. And it was stopped, in between the construction of the podium and the towers, 30 years or something passed, because the discussion of if Oslo could have a high-rise building for the town hall. Finally, it was built, and it's the best. So, okay. And my explanation was, we have the building with this gesture, with this gentle reverence to the city, to the artificial construction, to the dream of recuperating all this for the citizens. It's not looking to the fjord, it's like a tourist. It's not taking a picture of the islands. It's just looking to the proudness of the opera that was already there, and this straight connection with the town hall. From the 4th floor, you can look over the medieval town here. And we said it's a beautiful dialogue between the democracy, the politic as the art of living together, and culture. The museums are the place where we have to rewrite our history is the past, the present, and the future. Where are we coming from? What we are, and what we want to be in the future. No, and these two buildings are having a conversation between them about what we do, no, how we do it. Also, we did a lot of work about blocking views or not, moving a little bit the building to not blocking some perceptions. And finally, this discussion finished, and another more political discussion came that were not architectural, and we were not part of them. But Eric Fisher published the competition was launched in 2008, and we won that in March 29th, 2009. Exactly in that moment, or a few months before, Eric Fisher has published the collection of maps. Perhaps you know this, no? These maps that are done with the vectors of the photos that the tourists upload to the internet. And this is pre-Instagram. This is like, I don't know, Flickr or something like that. No? prehistory of internet. No, but there are many maps for sure. Is your city, so look for it. Eric Fisher. This is fast, and you recognize the city only with these vectors. No, in the case of Oslo, no, the Vigelands Park, the islands with the museums, no, the bay with the town hall, the main, no, gorgeous street, the Royal Palace, and the Opera Valles Nojeta. So in that moment, we discovered that the Opera Valles Nojeta was being a center, a new center, no, of gravity of the city. Perhaps selfies are not enough to define a center, but for sure, this was a good demonstration of the capability of a building to change the city. No, and we answered to the competition brief, no, that was in a certain way asking for a redefinition of the contemporary museum. No, I think in a very smart way, the organizers of the competition were trying to avoid the gorgeous expression of the post-Bilbao Guggenheim buildings. No, I think that finally many of the competitors did. No, and we were saying. Perhaps not. Our plan is to do a vertical building, because also like in Bogota, to stack the auditoriums here, stack the museum. We thought that was an exploration and a research that something good could reveal. The first was the reduction of the footprint of the building. So we give back to the municipality 80% of the land of the site of the competition. Like, thank you very much. We don't need it, and now it's a beautiful beach. And perhaps in the future is going to be built a new one more small museum there. The second was this idea of going up because with this system of vertical public space, of these platforms and stairs, there is a device, again, to discover the history of Oslo. So in each of these levels, you are reading a new skyline of the city from the Viking port that is under your building, and to the medieval era, 19th century industrialization, 20th century, etc. No? But the most important is this podium, this body, because we said, our critique, and many of you know this because it's part of my studio, last studios here, is museums are too focused in tourists. No, the museums are not part of the everyday life of the citizens. The major museums in the world are not interested of having the people there every day. No, and the reason for that is to don't show where those activities that basically do the locals are. Nobody knows where the children that go to the children programs in the major museums in New York, where they are. Not only the parents, no? Of course, that had to go to the third basement, perhaps. No, so we did this podium, and this podium is a kind of cultural center. We always define it as a public indoor square, where you have what you have in a square of a small village. You have a restaurant, you have a shop, you have a library, you have a school, that is the educational center, you have a research center, you have an auditorium, you have a cinema, and you have a museum. And the museum is in the tower. No? And the tower is divided in this circulation system and the solid, no, what we call the dynamic museum and the static museum. That is a collection of floors, not all of them with art, because we are not using the possibility that given by the competition of doing basements, because those basements were terribly expensive. And also, it's also a try, no? Let's say basements, can we don't do basements for once in our life, no? This was a good opportunity, no, because the water there, of course. But we will talk about this solid piece of building, this static museum, because it's where many other programs are included, no? So this is the scheme that we draw for this building, also for the Malva, the refurbishing of the Malva Museum in Buenos Aires that we were doing at that time. And it was in between the city and the exhibition spaces. What we have is the part of the museum that the people uses. Is a place where you go because there is a good film, because there is a good lecture, because you want to buy a present or friend, because you want to the library to do some homework in the school or whatever, no? So all these programs are here and the exhibitions are there. So this is the scheme. This is actually from the competition, where we have this mixing functions in this, you know, going up till the observation deck and the restaurant. But in the meantime, you can see many of these departments. You can discover the restoration department, you can discover the library, you can discover the administration department. So the children especially can understand that there are 250 people working every day. So this is not a cemetery, it's an active place, no? And so this is the lobby. This is this system of apparently random stairs, are not random at all, as you can imagine. This is this dynamic part of the circulation system, and this is also full of intention in terms of the dynamic part is lightly, perhaps noisy, where you move fast, you know, and the rooms for art are dark, you move slowly, and are silent, and we will see something of that. We also learned that the contemporary museums are having no more, or will have or are starting to don't have more than 40% of the surface devoted to conventional galleries. So the formats of art, the different activities and the richness of the programs, like especially education and some others like research, are taking the surface of these buildings, and the old-fashioned directors perhaps are frustrated because they have to deal with many other activities than organizing exhibitions. But I think it's a big conquest of the citizenship, no? Of this of the citizens, this variety, no? And here you understand this perfectly, and here is this, no, combination. Only the green is exhibition, the white is any other things. Like here you have this view of the library from one of the mechanical stairs going up, no? But this is also, I don't want to be late, but I need a minute to explain this. Because we did a research, 2008, remember, about all the exhibitions going around, or the temporary exhibitions going around the world in from museum to museum, had 650 square meters, 350, or 1,000. And the ones having 1,000, we're asking the museums to host these exhibitions to have two rooms, one of 650 and one of 350, because usually is the small format, the cabinet, the documentation center of the big one, no? So that's why we say, okay, we will do these rooms. So you are circulating here, you enter the room, you cross, come to the other, go out, and well, I had done the opposite. You have to do like that, this here, and I come back to the transport system, no? So that means that you are never watching a painting, and a group of 30 people are walking behind you because they want to go to the Rembrandt, no? So it's not. So the ceremony of attending the art is super important, but also we in a parallel research we understood that it's very difficult to keep only experts, and perhaps here many of us are experts, but 78% of the Norwegian citizens had not gone to a museum once in their life, an art museum. So the capability of paying attention to something that asks you for a lot of attention, but you are not an expert, you are not trained to that, is no more than 30 minutes. So how much art can you see in 30 minutes? 1,000 square meters, basically, no? One show, one exhibition, no? So that's why you go up, you breathe, no? You can take a rest, you can take a break, and go again to the next room, no? This is here just to show that the rooms are totally neutral. We are not interested, or we were not interested in design them deeply, or to conditionate the work of curators. Actually, even the installation of the first installation of the museum was not done by us, was not signed by office. And this is something to show the diversity. And this is the only room in all the building where some paintings will never be able of coming out, because they are so big and so delicate that even the doors and they were put inside the building through the facade. And we left a special hole there. The paintings came, were hanging on the walls, and it's the only place where will be like this forever. No, sorry. Okay. I said the only architectural problem we had was the height. Yes, it's true, but the building had many other discussions, no, and we had to deal with those discussions. No, we were not always invited to be part. Fortunately, was more political, but in many cases we had to participate, and we understood that it was a big opportunity of discovering a new design instrument. And this conversation. So we don't have to defend the building. We don't have to convince anybody. The situation I understood very fast was listening and answer the question. Not only the question, no, not telling your story to every person complaining about the building. So these are a few of the 250 front pages we had in these years, and in all kind of magazines. But this is the best because this is also about the maturity of a society. No, if you are in a country where the Sunday morning puzzle in the most important newspaper of the country has this photo of this guy, because it's supposed that the people know who he is. No, nobody in Spain know who this guy is. only my colleagues and my friends. No, but in Norway at that time, perhaps I was in the press too much. So knew that, no, and the question was nice, because it was like this guy will build the Munch Museum if the Heritage Department allows him to do. No. And we could discover wonderful things, like demonstrations asking the municipality to build the building, the torch parade, were totally out of our control and participation. And in the moment that that demonstration, after 2 months after the building was started the construction, we were in the media and the TV every day. Finally, the building was built. This is again the Ivan van, and was closed. And during the pandemic, social media helped us to keep alive the museum and very present. And I think this was, I don't want to say that it was good, but I think that it was useful in the sense of being accepted. No, so the building was there for 1 year. So you had 1 year to get in love if you didn't like before. No. And in one moment, something wonderful for me, and for us, and for Jens passes. No, is Alan Walker and Hans Zimmer in the middle of the pandemic. They recorded this video. No, Hans Zimmer in his home in Berlin with the piano, and Alan coming to 5 buildings all around the world that were closed and were invisible for the people, sending this message of hope. No, it's something like, keep going. There is something waiting for us. No, and there were many other, not many, but a few other buildings in this, and stamp was published. No? And 2 weeks after the stamp was in the kiosks, the Norwegian government said that they were not going to do more stamps because ecological reasons. No, it was the last, the last stamp, and now it's impossible to get it. No, of course, the collectors. And I want to dedicate 5 minutes before closing to the construction, knowing that Lola is going to be part of the conversation. and it's because to come back to this idea of the transparency. So we won the competition with a transparent building. The idea was to do a reacting object, reacting to weather conditions, reacting to any stimulation of climate, light, clouds, whatever. And we discovered this image of a monk painting his friend in the north of in a beach and in the north of Germany. He's not protected from the sun. He's really in the same posture. He's receiving the same killing sun, and is trying to do the same gesture to understand where the muscles are working. No, this is something that is behind this image of Jens Richter, testing the possible materials for the transparent facade, but in one moment we changed it to recycled perforated aluminium, and this was because in 2008 it was acceptable to do a glass facade facing west and using the machinery of the air conditioner to fight against this heat in the evening, in the summer, in the long summer and long evenings in Oslo, but we understood that it was not going to be acceptable soon, and we changed it. Many people complained it, and we had to do this one-to-one mock-up to demonstrate that it was not so opaque, and that from the interior the building would be transparent enough. But basically the sun was going to be blocked in this ventilated facade, as finally happened, and this is this pixelization of the outside, transforming Oslo in paintings, in a collection of paintings, in a collection of images of the city, But fortunately, also in the night, the building appears and reveals it a sense, And this is also about the transparency. It's not only a conceptual question. It can be also physical and can be an expression of how we are or how they are. These are some images about Future Built. The Future Built is a label, it's a Norwegian label of sustainability, very, very exigent, that oblige us to use recycled materials as possible, low footprint carbon, concrete, special glazing and controlling the solar radiation, diversification of equipment to don't have big machines working without a good performance, taking geothermal energy from the bottom of the fjord. So at the end, eliminating the basements, as you can see here. At the end, sorry for the music, this is part of the company running this sliding form, but this sliding form is using the technologies of the industry of the oil platforms, in the North Pole, and it's perhaps a message, of stop. You can stop doing that because we can use that technology. It's not that they will create a big amount of unemployment and perhaps architecture and the city can use this to do it better, faster, and easier. So we were a few 9 years fighting to get the building built, and finally we built in 23 days. And after that, Jan Peter Larsen was invited to do a performance in the building, because after the sliding form, of course, next week, all the void was going to be filled by slabs and stairs and elevators. So he produced and recorded for once only this piece of music with these two guys singing on top of this scaffolding, using only materials of the construction site. exactly at the height and at the distance of the walls that can reproduce the echo of the dimensions of this case of concrete. You know? So if this piece would be repeated, you only the problem is that you need exactly those dimensions, not to produce the same effect. And it's super beautiful, and was in a certain way the first piece of art of the Munch Museum. No? Sorry, but it has to be seen till the end, because the end is beautiful. So after that, the construction went as fast as possible. We were obsessed that the intention of the building were visible from the very beginning. So the construction had to be beautiful, as I said to you before, has to reveal something of the architectural intentions. In this case, relation with the city. We had this help of these climbers that are part of the history of the building. Today, they are still there, doing reparations and maintaining the facade. And this is also a discussion and a beautiful conversation about how expensive it was to clean the facade with the typical baskets hanging, people cleaning, no? And so finally we did that. This is also a nice story. We in one moment there was 400 people working in the building, but the construction was being long for the people, and so everybody was asking, when do you finish? When do you finish? So we convinced the construction company to do these T-shirts, what you can read, I built the Munch Museum, and give to the workers. No? So the workers that were in the building and not knowing each other, when they came out at the end of the evening to gathering around in the center of Oslo, especially in the summer, no? They could discover the others and say, you are, yes, I'm the electricist, I'm the third floor. No? So it was a kind of performance, all these people coming out, 200 of them or whatever, walking in the city and revealing this is not being easy. Look how many people we need to do. It was so funny because Jens Richter, my partner, asked the company to give us a couple of these T-shirts that we had designed, and they said, no, you are not building the Munch Museum. Okay, this is just to conclude. We invented years ago these diagrams. This is part of this biennial, Venice biennial installation in 2012, where we understood that we need a new system of representing how we work. So it's not the triangular, hierarchical architect, engineers, collaborators, or whatever. It's more about the dialogue of many different groups, the technicians, the designers, the client, no? And in the collaborators, you can find also lawyers or people helping us with very, or these psychologists helping with questions of the perception, many things. So at the end, is this multiplication of conversations, no, that I have described it many times as the end of the era of the architect as a director of orchestra, no, and the transformation of the work we do, no, in a kind of work of DJs, no, that are taking fragments of things all time and reconfiguring them in different ways. So we are losing also the sense of what is the correct solution. We are not interested in that. We are more interested in creating situations like this, where we invited many people to come to Oslo for these conversations, for these dialogues, no, that were part of the, no, in parallel with the dialogues were happening here in the school those years, no, and you can see faces that perhaps many of you know, and we were inviting to discuss with some topics like relations of art and architecture, or cultural architecture as a urban infrastructure like metro or like electricity, and it was forbidden to talk about the Munch Museum. So our intention was not to get people talking well about our project, was to get people demonstrating that, no, this audience were open to the public, that there are topics to discuss, there are something to talk about now urgently, and it's important to understand what of the work we do is part of that conversations and what not, no? Well, this is coordination, the apparition of Revit, and we could have this, no, coordination between engineers, and a collection of small competitions that we launched. The competition to do the landscape of this piece, for example, the competition to do the bench of the galleries, the competition to do, well, the finding was not part of our scope, and the competition to do the installation of the first display of the museum. And we launched it then, and we opened to young architects, and they won, and some of them did a very good business, because the bench is now being reproduced and sold all around the world. No, but we are very proud of this moment of not try to do everything, and open to others to participate in the conversation. In the last moment, the museum in the middle of between two waves of the pandemic, in between Delta and Omicron, the building was open, and that incredible party that was planned for the spring that never happened, full of experts and people and directors of museums all around the world coming to Oslo, they decided to change it and to do an opening, inviting inside the building 1,700 children without parents, you know? And I think this was a beautiful statement about we are working for the future. Our VIP people are these guys. And only one image to show you our most important project. Not all the people in this image is working with us today, but it doesn't matter. All we do is related to this image, or images like this. In 2014, James Richter and I decided to answer the question, or make seriously the question, are we collaborative? Are we open? Are we transparent? And we decided to move our office to another place, redesign the tables, redesign all the rituals, redesign the method of working. And the people who pass by our office, I think that they have the feeling that they are part of that, and many of them remain friends forever. Even now, this week, we are having one person coming back to the office after quitting for a couple of years for other reasons, and I think that after so many years of profession, my own practice or the own practice of any architect is a project, is the most important project, and is the project where you really can discover in 1 minute if you have done something useful for others or not. So, with you, Studio Herreros.
Well, Juan, fantastic
Wow.
lecture, amazing. So many layers to it. We will open it soon to the audience, so think what are the questions that you want to do. But maybe Lola, you want to start?
Yes, absolutely. Juan, thank you so much for sharing your sensitive, playful, rebellious work that I really enjoyed hearing more about. Really, I think what really I would really take away is how inventive and early inventions and really predicting what will be the streams of architectural design possibilities that you early on spotted on, if it's wind and shading, the air and cross ventilation, right, in Bogota, all these considerations of environmental response, shading, for instance, in the bridge element, but not only environmental, but also the looking at really at the people and the social considerations. So every pattern of building that you presented today was very ecological, the urban ecologies, but also in the buildings itself, in themselves, looking both at corporal, but also incorporeal and transcorporeal movements of thermodynamics. And the projects that you showed today really illustrate how we should kind of grasp the movement within buildings and outside buildings, of the materials, of the labor, and of the equipment. And I really loved seeing the passion in which you relate to the collaborative act of construction, and the love to the people who create the building with you, the human hands and tools. So even the largest buildings are handmade in a sense, and you really showed that through your construction processes. And what I really wanted to perhaps raise to the conversation and maybe ask today is something related to mocks or to experimentation, because from your work that relates to various scales, both smaller and experimental and large buildings, institutional buildings, how and mocks are really in the essence of the collaborative process and the co-invention of building elements and responses to environmental forces, etc. So how do you approach mock making or experimental making, perhaps even in the smaller scale projects? Are they kind of grounds for experimentation, for testing the skills, the knowledge, the materials, the concepts, the play, to your then larger construction is something that I
what we do
thought we want to hear.
It's an important part of our practice. We have the conviction that well, it's not a conviction. It's obvious that architecture is very slow production, no? But we have the conviction that that time is not only a pain, no, in terms of complications and no, but it is also a very rich moment in the offer of research, no? So we could do the monk, perhaps because the construction and all these political discussions were giving us the time to experiment the facade. We could build that one-to-one mock-up. We do one-to-one mock-ups always. We can, and if we can't do, because we are doing cheap commissions, for example, public commissions of the government in Spain, where the construction is always very cheap, we look for a small commission and do the mock-up in the small commission. So there are many people, don't tell them please, around the world who have in their homes the tries of the mock-ups one-to-one of other productions, no? And we do research not only in terms of materiality or construction solutions, no? It's also trying to be, as I said before, useful for others, no? So we work with companies and we help them to develop systems systems that they are many times incorporated to their catalogs and have another life, no? And I think that mix of the big commissions and the small ones like laboratories, and sometimes when we can do the long term of the big buildings as a laboratory, is for us very, very crucial, and we do. And also, this is a funny part of our working system. The people coming to our office to work the first they do is a facade. Is the detail one-to-one to a facade, even if they have not done that ever. That's better. No, for usual, they have not, and it takes months, no, to depurate and to find and to change, and to do to find the materials and to play with them, and it becomes part of the everyday life of the office, and the people pass by there and say, "That's going well. No, this has been a little bit. It's so big or whatever." No? So yes, and I think it's part of also of the progress, because repeating yourself is very, very bad, no? And the only way of not copying yourself, especially when you have more than a team that is more than the minimum, the teams have this tendency to copy what is done in the office, because they have the feeling that before doing wrong, it's better to do something that is already tested, you know? So I'm very bad for that, because I say, no, we have already done that, and we try to do something else, no? And they say, oh, I had selected this because I thought that because you did before, you like it, no? They say, I like it time ago, no?
So kind of encouraging your team to.
Yep. In a way, I think that that experimentation also is an experimentation of democracy. A big part of what you were explaining today is a way to find or to mobilize architecture, or to respond to the question, what is that architecture can do to help democracy or to cater to democracy? And that's, for me, very interesting in today's presentation, because what is the year that you started studying architecture in the ETSAM? When did you arrive to ETSAM as a student?
2 months before Franco died.
Okay, so that's exactly what I thought. Yes, so democracy was a big theme,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
and there was the school prosperity were divided. Half of the people were trying to continue with the previous regime, and a few of you were basically mobilizing architecture as a space. But what for me is very interesting is that it's not just you being a good citizen, but it's also as a professional how you basically thought of dimensions, entrances that would be shared by all the neighbors of a building, the way to repair what was damaged by a highway in a country that was basically developing those infrastructures to become a tax haven for the region. And so I think that your work is really about coding or mobilizing architecture as a force for democracy, but there was a part of coding that technically, or finding the way that the specific knowledge of design could be helping democracy. And I think that's very, very unique of your practice, and I think that's probably when the pragmatism was connected to what you do. But the truth is that we're in a different moment. The first part of your career was very much the emergency of Spain as democratic, and the institutions, the public institutions that came with that, schools, sport facilities, and the money that was also coming from the European Union to homogenize the resources across the European Union. But the second part is the crisis of democracy across the world. Tax havens in Panama, the welfare being questioned by the emergency of far right in northern European countries, and the culture of austerity. How is your career negotiating this first impulse of democracy and the excitement for architecture to cater to it, and architecture becoming much more of an infiltrated agent in countries that are actually reducing the span of democracy, or the slope of for democracy?
That's very important, because the first years of democracy, especially for my generation in Spain, were very productive, but we were like pushed by a wave, no? So there was an incredible movement of doing things, and we were getting opportunities, and we could do, all my generation could do. And of course, not all of them use it in a political sense, or they don't use it to celebrate not only democracy, but all kind of freedom and the discovery of many other people involved in interesting things that apparently they didn't exist during the Franco times, no? And especially people like my generation who we were not, we were young to fight hardly against Franco, but at the same time we reconstruct all our childhood exactly in the moment he died. No? No, I was not living in Madrid before going to the university. The moment I land in Madrid, 2 months after Franco died, and I have this fast film of all my life in a second-class family, middle class, no, and I understand very fastly many things, and this opportunity of doing architecture to construct the dream of a democratic society is amazing. But in 2000 and something, and all this blooming of the Spanish economy, I remember that here in this auditorium, many years ago, somebody was telling me that Spain is doing so well, the economy is going so extraordinary, you are doing so many things, and I said yes, but the young people can't pay the rent for an apartment, no? Yeah. And so it's more the show of this blooming economy, perhaps with all this money coming from Europe, no? And when the 2008 the big crisis comes, is the moment I am starting my second practice after sharing with Iñaki 20 years of office. I take it very seriously, the idea that our profession had to change. The message to be sent in the schools was totally different, and the recuperation of the political position was needed. No, perhaps in these first years of the democracy in Spain, we were not political enough, because the times of the politics had passed, were hard times, no, and we were just celebrating it, no. But when this crisis or these contradictions, arise, is the moment that we split my office with Iñaki, not because that reasons, but I started. I take this splitting as an opportunity of redefining totally my practice and coming into this idea of collaboration and to work in a transgenerational way, and changed my programs in the school here and in Spain. And start also to try to find opportunities to do certain things. So some of these projects we have seen here, nobody asked me to do. So we were like looking for them, especially the one in Panama, for example. So and I think that is also important. These acts of will. It's not like I remember the Prado Museum, the two Prado Museum competitions in Spain. We never entered, and everybody was like crazy looking for engineers to do the team, and many people called me and I said, no, I'm not doing the competition. You are not doing the extension of the Prado Museum? No, I don't have nothing to say. I don't have so much time. I don't have so I have other things to do, and many of these things I had to look for them. And I think that is when you really want something, it's easier to get it. And I think that in the 2014, in the third part, that is again a critical position against the recuperation of the crisis. So we have had this terrible problem of the crisis of Spain is going well. You remember the Aznar slogan? No, Spain is doing well. And the economic crisis of the 2008. So we always thought that after the crisis, everything was going to be finally, we were going to be democratic, but in the world, and harmony, and many things will change. The pandemic, after the pandemic, everything was going to be different, and finally all the humanity would have discovered that we have to live in harmony with nature and with the others and whatever. Now that we have increased it 10 times the bureaucracy and messages, no? So, but architecture has to be there. Architecture has to be there and has to assume a very strong responsibility, and very especially the design. So architecture as a practice, as something that produce realities that affect the quality of life of the people. And in that moment, we have to know what we want to do, or we want to leave behind us in terms of, you have to choose, be the front page of the croquis or other options, perhaps.
That's really interesting, and thank you for raising the point on democracy. It's occurred to me that my father has been going to protests in the past 2 weeks in Israel, and saying that he lived in Spanish territory in the time of Franco, so he can identify dictatorship when he sees it. But really, I think what really strikes me and what's really interesting is that the knowledge and the way you describe the office or the practice changing with the economic forces, and how we keep the sense of agency and response to movement of power is really important and relevant, especially guys here for you who will be looking at practicing after your degree. So I think that's really important. Thank you, Juan. Should we?
Yes, probably there's many questions.
There is a question.
There's a question there.
There's a hand.
That was a great presentation, Juan. I was struck by your moment when you said that you decided to, in the Bogota project, to basically allocate capital differently, away from the upper half and to the lower half. And I'm curious, when did you figure that out in the design of it, that you were going to basically do something very simple but thoughtful up in the space that you can't occupy but you can see?
I couldn't hear very well one part of your, but I understand that you are asking me for the Bogota project, no?
Yes, your decision to take the capital and take it off of the ceiling and put it into the lower part of the big hall. And when did you make that decision as you were developing the program, and how did it come about?
Well, the brief of that competition was very conventional, and perhaps the people writing it was not thinking that, no? Because it was the idea of the typical expanded horizontal building, no? So we were making this decision of eliminating all the elements that characterized usually the Congress centers, to don't be able of saying what this is a Congress center, no? It's more like saying what is this, no? So all these movements, no, to inverse or to pile the rooms or to put the big salon on the top and not in the bottom, was related to that, no? Of course, we wanted to have this 5,000 people main hall in the building, and the way of having no columns totally was better on the top, but also was a way of using the building, of understanding the building as a transition to get there, no? That building has many other programs like enormous kitchens or enormous parkings or enormous storage, and you can get a small track in any level, no? But the idea of having the big hall on the top, that I don't know if you are asking me that. Exactly, no? ¿Es lo que me está preguntando?
Yes.
No, yes.
Yeah.
Came in the moment that we were discussing this idea of transforming the building into a kind of three-dimensional city. So these observatories, these small lobbies are like squares. All the circulation system are like streets, and this is the big representative collective place, you know, and the idea of being on the top is a kind of celebration of the democracy, no, in terms of here is the place, no, and it was very discussed, but we had very good advisors in terms of functionality, and the conclusion, we could convince the jury that it was more interesting for them not to block the whole building, because if you had that at the bottom, the rest of the building would be blocked by that big room, no? So having on the top, we could have the rest of the building working all time, and not many, but 5, 6 events can happen at the same time. No?
And I can really sit in that atrium and feel like from the images, feel the fresh drift of air through that stack ventilation through the slabs that you described. So
no, the atrium was, even in the first round of the competition, it was open. So the lobbies were closed, so the atrium was working like a kind of gallery, you know, Vittorio Emanuele gallery, you know. Yes, but that's the reason. And I remember that they asked, we were asked many times about how you justify that, and we were looking for situations and parallel experiences to that, and we found it many, no? And in history and football stadiums, and you know that you have to climb to the sky, in the Madison Square Garden. No, it's the same. You can go there and stay and see the city from the top and discover that you are part of a huge ecological environment where you are playing a role, no? And that is also very important for me, to use the buildings as amplifiers of presences and amplifiers of the responsibility all we have staying here, no? And so if you go there and you are on the top of the building and you are in a concert and you are with few thousand people and you look through the windows and you read these 20 million people, perhaps you understand many things, of what can we do with this world. No? There was one more question.
What about pedagogy? Oh, there's a question, right? Maybe we can wait. Let's.
Hi. Great work that you shared. Regarding your second project, I'm curious about what the conversation with your team or your clients was around, like the form factor or facade of your work as an extension of like the identity of a city, and an extension of how, I guess, like the values that they're trying to also export to the community and to the world.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is. It's quite interesting because the architectural office, is small architectural offices like mine, are like small worlds that you have always the risk of being concentrated in what you do inside your walls, no? And this idea of developing the system of working with collaborators and with other offices and with other young practitioners in different countries is part of our effort to expand this conversation. And we have some routines that happen every week or every Friday, and we have some obligations, of giving every person in our office a responsibility in terms of design. Perhaps it's only a part of a building, perhaps it's the furniture of a bigger project, but this is everybody has to be asked for something. So it's like, hey, what about this? Ask Pedro, no? So Pedro perhaps is just arrived to the office, no? But is the guy having this knowledge, no? So, and we stimulate that, and we know many people here know that I never come to the office with drawings. Actually, I don't do sketches, and if I do, the sketches are not to ask nobody to draw clean AutoCAD drawing for my sketch. I recommend don't do that. And it's more like we work like in the school. We work like if we were a studio, and we have a topic, and we start working, and The first drawings are always produced by others, and we reconfigure and we transform all along the process. And in one moment we invite people from outside to join the team. And if we work out of Spain, we always hire an office to work with us. And this office is always young and is always good designers. So we are not looking for banal practitioners helping us to get licenses or permissions. No? So we really look for people who can get something, and for sure we get something for them, be sure.
Sorry, I'm more so concerned about like the conversation around like what maybe the form of the final, like a large civic work can mean, and what that can express to the people around, and not just maybe who's involved, but as like the discussion and dialogue around like what maybe a large monolithic structure in a community might mean and say to the rest of the world in the community.
Yeah.
Well, I could say the dialogue has to be a dialogue, and dialogue is a very specific communication figure. So dialogue is not everything that two persons talking do. No? So we have also to cultivate it in a responsible way. You know? So how we establish these dialogues with our people, how we transmit what we do to others, how the communication of the projects ongoing to clients, or what image you want to produce in your media or whatever. No? So I think the dialogue is today an instrument of design. It's not only an instrument of communication. No? It's in the dialogue, in the conversations we make a lot of design decisions, no? Without drawing, just talking. But if it's not a dialogue, for any reason, many conversations start being a dialogue and go to another place. It's impossible to get any benefit in that direction. No? So we could talk a lot about that, but it's quite influenced by my teaching practice. I think that our office is like a symmetrical mirror of the teaching. No, so I teach like if we were in an office, and I am in the office as if we were in the speculative environment of the university. No?
Michael, there. Yeah.
Maybe I can Juan, that unbelievable lecture. I met Judd this afternoon. He's a visiting, maybe will be an incoming student, so that's a fantastic question. I knew the book Tower and Office before I knew you, but also, and I remember being amazed at this kind of comprehensive study of how building systems integrate into monumental works of architecture. Around that same period of time, you were lecturing here on and off, and often. You did the recycling station in Barcelona, which you didn't show tonight, but already then you were doing these buildings that functioned and brought the people in and had pragmatic purpose, and then were of course made in this kind of synthetic way, but also by parts. So it's a long way. Like in Tower and Office, there's a lot of integration. You focused on Louis Kahn, for example. But here, I was thinking, I don't mean to reference Louis Kahn, but it comes up. It's the essay in the 40s, Monumentality, which I didn't know until I was much older. He talks about bolting versus welding steel connections. And he's basically like critiquing the American building code as being based on life safety, and he can't do things that he thinks would be aesthetically more pleasing because of redundancy and everything else in the building codes, life safety. But I bring that up because I feel like in that Barcelona project, and even now, the monolithic nature that I feel like I know Judd because I spoke to him so much today. It's the buildings are often made of sticks. They're big steel sticks, but they're also, I'm sure I'm not entirely correct, but there's a lot of bolted connections which kind of enunciate the lines. So it's monolithic and it's linear.
Yeah.
To me, that ties very much into Andres, our dean's introduction, that these things are like part of the vernacular building culture, and they're also a kind of critique of it. To me, they kind of say they're both thermally open, like you come into them, but they still have the exterior air. And even though they're monolithic, they're still kind of bolted together in a way that you feel that they're quite temporal. It's not so much a question, so much as when I got to know you early on, I remember you mentioning you actually literally, you and Iñaki were teaching the building science courses before design.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
this kind of question, like always the making, has been in your. It's just it is really it's a remarkable lecture tonight that covers this whole scope of issues that are absolutely part of your teaching, but then you can literally see it in the work.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, this is really
I think that's part. I was teaching construction systems for years before becoming a studio instructor in Madrid. But all the line of this my relation with construction is about the permanent reconfiguration of the idea of lightness and the three-dimensionalization of construction and this lightness trying to escape of the consolidation of certain ideas like, I don't know, minimalism, for example. No? So there was a moment, Iñaki and I were working, and we started appearing in the recopilations of minimal architecture. Minimal, cheap perhaps, but or bad in terms of conservation, but minimal. No, so in that moment, I think we had to escape of that and say, okay, light construction has to be a different thing from now on. No, and I think I have been doing that. No, and perhaps in Bogota is quite present. No, this. And it's quite smart, this observation of the mixing between the linearity and the tectonics or whatever, no? Yeah.
Each element and then the total.
Thank you.
But maybe it's a good moment to close this amazing long discussion. Thank you very much, Juan. This was
No,
Thank you,
very
Juan.